Good morning, everybody. Patricia here. We are excited to come to you today. It's a Traefik Online Meetup. It's 9 a.m. in San Francisco, and we are coming to you live with a really exciting show today. So for starters, let me tell you a little bit about what's going on, and let that typing in the background excite you, because those are our speakers preparing for you. So I am Patricia Dugan. I'm the head of community for our lovely community of Traefik. And Traefik Online Meetups are created by yours truly. And what we do is we showcase the ways Traefik and Mesh are being used to solve interesting technical challenges. So what you need to know about Containers, who is the company who helps us create Traefik and Mesh, is that we are hiring. So please go to our careers page if you're curious on what roles we have and apply if you're a great candidate. And then the events page is where we have all the events and upcoming online meetups that you can sign up to also. Now, the way this is going to go today for the online webinar is that you will enjoy the show. And then if you have questions, please enter them into the chat box. And I will moderate that so that at the end of the show, our speakers will attend to those and answer all of them. And then if you, for some reason, don't get your question answered or have to run off to another meeting, we'll put these in a GitHub gist and they will go in the YouTube video in the description. So with that, this video will also be hosted on our YouTube channel, which I will share in the chat box, and it will live forever, so you may refer to it in the future at any time. Now, super excited. Today we have a nice present for you, which is a show, and it's called Cloud Native Tools for Developers. And who is speaking is the one and only Ellis, the creator of OpenFaaS and a CNCF Ambassador. And then he has with him Alistair Hey, a cloud consultant at Hey AI. I am super, super excited to be here with them. They're super cool, and wait till you see what they have planned for you. And again, don't be shy. Ask questions, enter them in the chat box, and we thank you for joining us. So with that, I'm going to pass the microphone over to Alistair and Alex. Have fun, thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. So I can see a few people from the OpenFaaS community and my network, and a whole bunch of other people that have come along too. So thanks for being here. We're going to start with a presentation that's going to cover these cloud native tools that makes Kubernetes easier to use. And then towards the end, we're going to break into a demo, and Alistair will be using a jump box, Raspberry Pi in my house, open with Inlets. He'll be connecting to the Raspberry Pi cluster, and we have a cool demo where you can get interactive, put your favorite emoji into a GitHub issue, and we'll be basically tallying it up and seeing what the most popular one is by emoticon. So let's get started. Now, what makes a tool cloud native? There's probably a whole bunch of different definitions on this, but the tools that we're looking at today, I think particularly sort of hit the note on this one. So for me, cloud native tool, or something that I'm going to be interested in using with my technology stack, needs to solve a problem that exists and isn't imagined. So there's a pain point that I've experienced, or that perhaps somebody in my network or team has experienced, and it addresses that in some way that's better than the other workarounds. It focuses on developer experience, so it needs to be easy to use, but also should be intuitive. Being lightweight, I think, is important too. As we look at some of the older tooling that we might have used 10 years ago, tends to be very heavyweight, difficult to install. But this kind of tooling is packaged for the cloud, whether that means that it's a static binary or it's easy to install. Perhaps it works on Linux out of the box, or any number of things, like it has a Helm chart, and all of the tooling that we're looking at today does come with that kind of packaging. Open source, I put this in italics because I think open source is important so that you can contribute back and also understand what the tooling is doing. And then multi-arch ready, and this varies. For some business users, multi-arch isn't important, but I know for a lot of you that are here today, and particularly for me, being able to run your code on any kind of CPU architecture It's actually important in the cloud. So that is why we're going to make Kubernetes tooling easier, right? That was the original title of the webinar. So today I'll introduce you to K3S, which is a lightweight Kubernetes distribution. Maybe you'll learn a couple of things here. Maybe you might even know more than I do about it. But I want to show you this tool. And then Ketchup, which again helps you create K3S clusters so that you can get Kubernetes the easy way. Arcade packages apps and allows you to get hold of things like Postgres and MongoDB, OpenFaaS, and other software very, very easily. Inlets is a tunnel that will allow you to connect services together where you probably thought you couldn't ever get inbound traffic. And then we'll just touch very briefly on OpenFaaS and why OpenFaaS exists and is so popular. Finally, and this is the bit that I'm excited about, so we're going to put it all together in a way that makes sense, and Alistair's going to come and give a demo. Like I said, I think cloud native tools should be multi-arch first, working on Intel and ARM hardware, and everything we'll show you today does, including Traefik, which is really great. So K3S will probably get you Kubernetes in around 30 seconds. This is what the documentation site says. So you can imagine you've got nothing on a VM or a computer. In 30 seconds, you have K3S, even on an ARM device. And if you've ever tried installing Kubernetes on ARM, the old way, it really wasn't a 30-second journey. It was very, very difficult. And so the team at Rancher have worked super hard to make something that just works. And I think they should be proud of themselves. It is GA now and went 1.0 around the time of San Diego KubeCon last year. HA is supported and it does run great anywhere. It is not just for IoT. It is not just for Raspberry Pis. It's not for messing about. You can put this into production and you can enjoy it. There's even a managed version of K3S provided by Civo, a cloud company in the UK. Now, the word K3 comes because it's less than K8. And that's a very simple idea, but that's what we get. In terms of memory, for a server, we're looking at 500 megs. Kubeadmin was getting so big it wouldn't even work on a Raspberry Pi 3 anymore. And then for any agent that you join, it only needs 50 megs of RAM. So you could imagine how powerful this can be. There is a single binary, and that's part of how we're able to get the memory down. So things like Traefik actually and Flannel and other pieces are all bundled together. And then there's a couple of things that have been switched out. Originally, Darren had changed 8 million lines of code. Now he maintains a very small patch. And part of the benefit is everything's bundled together in a single binary. The other benefit we have is that Cetrad or Setid, however you like to say it, has been replaced with SQLite. And so this can run quite efficiently on a single node. So that's K3s or K3S. And this is an example of how it all works. So the things that are different here are that we're using Containerd instead of Docker. If you want to use Docker, that is actually possible too. And there's flags for that. SQLite is the main backend, and that gives you a single server. So there's no HA, but you can swap that and you can use things like a relational database. And then there's a tunnel proxy that's built in to K3S. And actually we use that in Inlets too. And that allows computers on different networks to talk to each other without having lots and lots of configuration. So recently, there was a bit of controversy about K3S and Traefik. So K3S was shipping Traefik 1.x by default. And then Darren was thinking about scrapping that and shipping Nginx. And then he's gone full circle and now wants to ship Traefik and Traefik 2.0 as well. So the good news is that you basically get this out of the box. But if you wanted to use 2, you kind of want to install K3S without Traefik. If you use our tool Ketchup, you can put -- no extras and it suppresses that, and you can add Traefik 2 later on. Some people like Daniel here is a little bit confused about what Traefik 2 does. It is just like Traefik 1, except it also has some bonus CRDs that Kubernetes developers love, but you can use it in the normal way as a normal Ingress controller, right? And we've added instructions and flags for you to be able to do that. So Ketchup is a tool that I started when I was working for a client. I have a consultancy business on Kubernetes, and basically we needed lots of tutorials about how to set up K3S. And it was super repetitive. There was like 10 different steps: change the permission of this file, do this, log in. And in the end, I figured I could write a Go tool to do this. And I did. I wasn't sure if it was going to be popular, but it solved the problem at hand. It was lightweight, it was multi-arch, it hit all those boxes, and now it has 1.6 thousand GitHub stars. And there's tutorials and blog posts about it. The basic way it works is you do an install, and that gives you a server. This works over SSH. If you're just running on your own computer, you can do -- local, and then you can join in other computers after that, and you get a cluster. So this reminds me a bit of the interface you might have seen with Docker Swarm, and I know some of you are still quite keen on Docker Swarm. So this allows you to have a similar experience, but with Kubernetes. Okay, and the website is k3sup.dev. So this is how it would work. Now, the difference here, for some of you that have maybe done this in the past, is you don't log into the computers, you don't log into the VMs. You actually will just run this from your laptop, and because it's using SSH, Ketchup will go and install, join, and then it'll bring a kubeconfig back to you, to your computer. Once you've got that kubeconfig, you can then just use kubectl or any Kubernetes tooling that you've got like Helm, and you can manage your cluster. Right. And remember, we're using far less RAM, so we could probably get away with even using cheaper nodes than we ever did before. And we can even take advantage of Raspberry Pis. Behind me, I've got 24 Raspberry Pi 3s that only have 1 gig of RAM. So when I was using Kubernetes with kubeadm, was basically a nightmare. Now with K3S, it works really well. And you can also buy the 2 and 4 gig Raspberry Pi, right, and use all of that RAM. So we're not logging into the Raspberry Pi at all. We just put a Raspbian Lite on it, flash the SD card. Once that's flashed, we boot it up, and we do ketchup install, point it at the first one, and then join. Now there is multi-master or HA, and so you can also use different flags if you want to start a cluster and have, let's say, like 3 servers and 2 worker nodes. That's good too. And with K3S, all of your servers can also run pods, right? So there's no need to taint them or worry about having spare capacity. So once you've got Kubernetes, you need some apps, right? And I don't know what it's been like for you, but with Helm 2, you couldn't really use it on a Raspberry Pi. There was no Tiller binary. Generally, you'll go to a GitHub page, you'll search for a chart, you'll find all the options that you need, and then you'll find out it doesn't work on ARM, or it doesn't quite work on a PC the way you wanted. Or maybe it worked, but you're now 10 instructions down, you've been through 10 different websites. So I'm going to introduce you to Arcade, and Arcade helps solve the problem about Tiller. For one, it allowed us to template YAML files instead of using Tiller. Now we have Helm 3, so we don't even need that anymore. And we don't even have to think about Helm 2 or 3. We've made the best decision for you in the code, and it will do everything without you thinking about that at all. And some people think that real developers use GitOps and that's the only way to install software. It really isn't, especially when you're learning or in development or in the lab. Perhaps you want to use a tool like Flux when you're going to production, but there's so much more to the Kubernetes ecosystem than just using GitOps, and there's nothing to stop you running this tooling in CI anyway. Yeah, so all Kubernetes software is pretty easy to install, but it might take you 3 hours to go through all the different web pages and tutorials. And then when you get to something that only runs on ARM, they normally don't tell you because they don't even know that ARM exists. These are all the problems that we're trying to solve with this software tool. And we want to make it easier for you to install apps. And that's what Arcade is.
Alex, OpenFaaS installation on Kubernetes is a good example there of the multiple steps, and there's support now in Arcade for ARM versions. So users now can just install that with one command. So going from your 10 manual steps straight into one command.
Yeah, and it will decide, do we want values YAML or do we want values YAML for ARM? if you want to have a load balancer, it's just -- load balancer, whereas before you would have had to look up the specific -- set. You might have had to have your own YAML file and maintain it. If we change something in the chart or the chart breaks, we just change the code in Arcade and you don't have to think about it. So the two commands we have are install, and what that will generally do, if it's using a Helm chart, and things like the Kubernetes dashboard don't use a Helm chart, we'll download that tool, it will add the repo for you, update your repos, install the app, and then give you some output at the end. And if you miss the output, later on you can run arcade info and it will give you the output again at any time. And we do have this really cool t-shirt. It's actually coming in grey now, and this was designed by Utsav, a student from India in the community, and we've got them to buy at store.openfaaS.io, along with a whole bunch of other swag. Now, some of the swag that we've got comes with free stickers, so go and have a look later, see what you want. Now, going back to the old way, like Alistair said, this is a workflow. I mean, I've done this so many times. Okay, I need to install Nginx Ingress. Great. I open a tab, I Google it. I spend a while trying to figure out which the right one to use is. Then I have to scour the README, what I've got on the left, find the exact thing that I need to change. I'm probably going to get it wrong, and I've got to start over again. The new way is having strongly typed flags. So for Arcade, install OpenFaaS -- help. Rather than looking at that README file and searching around, we've made the choice for you. And if you want 3 versions of your gateway, 3 replicas, -- gateways 3. If you want to use Helm 3, -- Helm 3, which is a default, or false, and you'll get Helm 2 and templating. You can also customize the pull policy and all sorts of things here. And then if there's something that really is in the Helm chart and we've not exposed, you can just do -- set, right? And so this should make your life a lot easier. Now, it's not just OpenFaaS that we have, but this is a great example. It's one of the first apps that we put together. And we thought, we need an installer for OpenFaaS, but we're not going to be selfish. We're going to make one for everybody to use instead. And so this is the installer that we have, and we were the first user of it. There are other commands and other things available for you. For instance, we've got Linkerd here. And again, that downloads the Linkerd CLI for you automatically, puts it in the right place, installs it in your cluster. You have MongoDB, Postgres, Kafka connector for OpenFaaS, Istio, you name it. And with some of these apps, like Istio, there's clearly no ARM support and there never will be. It will just tell you, I'm sorry, you can't install that, right? And that's something that we can save you the pain on, and we can help you understand rather than you going through the hard way. What was the latest app we've added there, Alistair? I'm trying to think.
Traefik 2?
Traefik 2 came in recently, and that must have been really recent. And then Grafana. And when we were doing Grafana, Marcus Hartman was helping us with that in the community. And we found that if you had a certain configuration, you couldn't install on all ARM processors. So we've customized that. We've spent the time so that you don't have to. I want to show you really complex architecture here that would probably take you, and certainly when I did this for Civo as a written tutorial, it took me a good day or two to write this up, do the picture, test it. And what we've got is a TLS registry deployed inside a Kubernetes cluster with a public IP and Let's Encrypt certificate. Here's a new way of doing that. First of all, we'll install Traefik 2, then we'll install Cert Manager, then a Docker registry, and finally, we've got an Ingress template that you can use that you just put your email and domain into and set the Ingress to Traefik or whatever you're using, and all of that work has been compressed down into something that is actually super easy for you to do. And this works on a Raspberry Pi. Alistair did this, and I pushed 500 meg image to his house through it, through Inlets tunnel, and it worked really well. The other thing that you can do is if you do have a Raspberry Pi or you've got an on-premises computer or a NAS, you don't have an IP, so you wouldn't be able to get that TLS from Let's Encrypt. The Inlets operator is another app, and using our Pro edition, that can get you a public IP, and it can do the TLS negotiation, talk straight to traffic inside your private cluster, and you can run this example. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the next tool, which is this tunnel Inlets. The basic reason that I started this project was that, and I know there's a few people on the call that might already know this, is that I was working with a team and we were testing webhooks. We were building a CI pipeline. We needed these webhooks to come into the private network on our laptops where we're testing the code. We couldn't do that. There was just no way of getting them in. Nginx was banned by DNS name. Everything else we tried didn't work. We couldn't even SSH out. And so I put together a small POC, and what I was able to do is lend an IP address to my private computer using a DigitalOcean droplet or just some computer on the internet. And then by talking from the client side first and connecting to that Inlet server, I was able to have a WebSocket set up. And then whenever GitHub or someone like that would talk to the public server, it would just proxy it back to me on my private computer. And there's lots of documentation about this. You can find out more later on, but that's a basic idea. We've got code on our computer, a service, a database, maybe SSH, and we want to connect to that. So you can get a public IP address for private computer, and that's a virtual IP. If you open your laptop lid and you get one at home, you close it and you go to a coffee shop and open the lid again, you'll have the same IP. It will work through a captive portal. It'll even work through hotel Wi-Fi. NAT, proxies, firewall. The free edition is open source and you'll get HTTPS with that, or you can use a commercial L4 version, and that's what we're doing today for our demo. And we can expose an Ingress controller, and Alistair's going to connect to a Raspberry Pi in my house through SSH using it, and the project's called Inlets. So we've got a few tools there. We've got a Kubernetes cluster, we've installed apps on it, we've got connectivity. The next thing is where we want to build our application. Serverless. And FaaS, you've probably heard this in connection with Lambda, and a lot of teams hear this word and they say, we're not ready for serverless yet. We're just trying to understand Kubernetes. We're just trying to understand Docker. Well, the good news is that actually serverless works great with Kubernetes, and it has nothing to do with where you are in your journey. In fact, it can actually really help you at the beginning of your journey to get stuff up and running in a short period of time. Now, you can use this approach with monoliths and microservices, existing code. That's not a problem. But I think where it comes into its own is where you have small blocks of code. You have a real focus there. You specialize on having stuff that's stateless, where your state is perhaps in a managed database. That's what we're going to do in our demo. Our database is going to be on DigitalOcean, but all of our code is going to be on the Raspberry Pi. You can either run event-driven or using REST. Today we're using REST, but there's plenty of users of serverless that might be using events from Kafka or S3. And when you do start to think more about functions, you can break things down into smaller pieces and compose them back together. Again, this is cloud native as an approach and easy to use, somewhat easier to use than perhaps doing everything yourself. But there's a few problems. If you've used serverless in the cloud, then you generally have to write your code in a supported runtime. You can't just write it how you normally write it. You then have to use a zip file, which is probably not your normal packaging format. You may be more used to using a Docker image. You have a platform that you're uploading to rather than something that's generic. So then you have a bit of a lock-in between, let's say, Amazon or Google Cloud, different regions that you can deploy into, different products that integrate with it. And then you can only deploy it to AWS. You can't deploy a Lambda function to GCP. Right? So when it comes to the enterprise or perhaps the cloud native, we're kind of stuck, right? And we need a solution. What are we going to do with that Node.js microservice that we need to run anywhere? Well, that's where serverless 2.0 comes in. And serverless 2.0 allows you to, yes, build a function, but here's where you can be ready for serverless now. You can run a microservice, and you can run legacy code, even binaries, right, without changing them. you can run that anywhere. So you can run it on Amazon if you like Amazon's cloud. Like, it's a great cloud. EKS is a good product. You can run traffic there, no problems. But you have portability, so you can move that around and you can get the same experience on your laptop debugging that and in staging as in the production in the field, right? Or even at the edge. Autoscaling is also something that is important for serverless 2.0. You're not necessarily having to even manage servers. Having portability doesn't mean that. If you use, for instance, Amazon's EKS, you can have Fargate, which is ad hoc containers running all of your code rather than having to set up individual nodes and manage them, right? And any of that code that you've packaged can then scale to 0, which is really important for companies like LivePerson, who have customers defining their own chat functions that most of the time aren't active, and they only need to start up when a customer has come online. So OpenFaaS is slightly different from any of the projects that I introduced you before from cloud vendors, in that it's independent and it's a community-based thing. So all of the contributions have come from people that are not paid full-time by employers to work on a product. It's just an open source project that actually puts developers first, is really easy to use. And because of that, it's gone and been put into production by dozens of companies. And if you want to know what they're doing, head over to openfaas.com/blog, and you'll see various case studies from people like Vision Banco and others where they've been able to apply it to solve a problem. So if you've got your CKAD and the CNCF have taken your money for that, and you've now got that on your LinkedIn profile, why would you care about using some abstraction on top of Kubernetes? Well, I think we've already given some reasons why you might want to do that, but I think this is still too hard on Kubernetes. We just want to say hello world in Node.js. That's all we want, okay? First thing we need an entry point. So we need something that's going to listen on a HTTP port. Next, we're going to have a package JSON that defines what dependencies we need. Then we need a handler that's going to actually render the page. We're probably going to need more than one of these. We then need a services YAML file. And this is a small one. Normally, they're a bit bigger than this. We then have to have a deployment. And believe me, I'm letting you off lightly with this. It's probably 2 pages longer than that in real life, where you finely tuned all of the security policies. Then you need an Ingress definition and a TLS certificate definition. You need to actually build a Docker file for that. And did we miss anything? We probably did. There's probably a bit more that you need. And all of this is only to say, hello world. And don't get me wrong, I think Kubernetes is great, but I don't want to be the one stuck maintaining 100 of these with all the duplication and the Helm charts and everything else. So to get the same result with a serverless approach, that's all we need. A very tiny YAML file saying where the Docker image goes, what template we're using, and then really what to do when we get a HTTP request. And that is it. So I hope you agree that's much smaller. And I see there's lots of questions firing away there. We might have a chance to answer some of them later. But we're not trying to make this too simple. You can still have all the things that you would expect. Like, there's a subset of them available, like memory limits, secrets, labels, environmental variables, and the very important part of the story too. So if you wanted to just build out a Node.js function, not a microservice, let's just say we're looking at a function. Here's a quick example. This uses async await. It's using Node.js 12. And because we have the ability to use Docker images, we had LTS version of Node way before Amazon, way before Google or anyone else. And here's an example of what you can do if you have like a Ruby on Rails app. You can literally just write a Docker file, and that's all you need. If you listen on a HTTP port, then you can deploy it in OpenFaaS and get all of the benefits we talked about. So now I want to show you a real application, because you might not believe me yet that it can do real things. And so what we're going to do is want to get your favorite emoji. And this is where I'm going to need you, after we've run the demo, to participate. you'll comment on a GitHub issue and you'll put your favorite emoji. You can do more than one. And OpenFaaS is going to collect all of them in a database. It's then going to rank them, and there'll be a page we can look at to see how the demo is going. It's going to look a little bit like this. And you can see cherries were quite popular and first-class medals. You can put whatever you want on here. And what's going to happen is that's all going to go to a Raspberry Pi in my house. Alistair's going to install Traefik on there, so we get a TLS certificate, and then you'll access it through a custom TLS domain. This is my little architecture picture. So up on the top left, you see here I am. I'm putting a love heart. I'm commenting on GitHub. A little bit further down, we've got an import comment function that's connecting to Postgres on DigitalOcean using their managed service, inserting it in a table. And then there's another me lower down, and you can see there's a HTML page rendered. I'm going to the view function that renders a static web page, and that talks to the comments function that goes through and queries the table. Okay. All of the code is open source. I built this last night in a very short period of time. It might not be perfect, but hopefully it'll get you a good idea, and it's all written in Go. So, Alistair, do you want to talk us through how we're going to put it all together?
Yeah, sure. So Alex, as he said, has got 4 Raspberry Pis sat somewhere in his house, possibly behind him. We're going to run through how we install K3s with ketchup. I'm going to create a 4-node cluster. We're then going to go through and install Traefik. We're going to install Cert Manager. We're going to install the Inlets operator, which will get us a public IP on the public cloud. And then using OpenFaaS that's installed, we're going to get a custom TLS domain for our OpenFaaS installation. And then we're going to try and get a new custom domain using the function Ingress definition for our emoji website. So hopefully by the end of this, we should have an emojis domain you can go to see what you've all voted on GitHub. And on there as well, there's a link to GitHub.
Do we have enough time for you to bootstrap a cluster with ketchup first?
I can run through. I've got 4 nodes set up on DigitalOcean,
Okay.
and I can go through the process of bootstrapping.
We'll do that first. If you want to start sharing your screen, we'll switch over.
Yeah, sure. Share and try and get the right screen. It's this one. So you should be able to see 2 terminal windows now.
Yep.
And this is on my local machine, not the machines in the cloud. So I've got 4 droplets set up here in the London region. And we're going to go through one by one and create a K3s cluster. So first thing I'm going to do is install ketchup, the tool. So we're going to download that. Because we're running on my machine, it's a Intel-based processor, and it's downloaded that there. So we now should have ketchup installed, the latest version here. And we are going to use the install command. I'll try and get the help up for that, to install our master node on the very first of those DigitalOcean clusters. So I will just paste the command in there. So I'm using the no extras command so that we don't install Traefik in there as well, which is the command Alex will have used on his Raspberry Pi.
That's Traefik 1,
Traefik
so that we
1,
can add Traefik 2.
So we can add Traefik 2 ourselves a bit later on. So,
and who knows what Darren will decide. He might just switch everything over to Traefik 2 at some point. He might maybe just have no Ingress controller and let us add it in a flag.
yeah.
But ketchup will be ready for that, and we will update our code.
Yeah, I tend to install without any of the load balancers in, and then add my own on a bit later on. So I need to. So I've now got a kubeconfig in my.
It would be better if you copy and pasted the command on the screen because of the folder. Test your cluster with.
Say again, sorry.
It'd be better if you copy and pasted where it says the full path.
This one.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
this is a common error people make, because if you don't have the full path and you're in a different folder, or you run a tool in a different folder, it won't work.
Okay. You learn something every day. Thanks, Alex. So I'm now on this top terminal, just going to set up a watch on there. So hopefully by now we're connected, and we can see that we've got our first node here. It's ready. It's running as the master in the cluster, and yeah, it's running in Ubuntu image. So what I'm going to do now, hopefully, is use this second window here to join the other cluster. So I'm using, sorry, the second IP there to install the new one, and hopefully along the top we should see the new one.
Yeah,
jump
and
in.
we use that tunnel network that we talked about before.
Yeah,
to connect in.
And I'm just going to go through and add the next one. So we've now got 2-node cluster, and when this one joins, it's just finished, we'll have 3, and there I'm just setting up the 4th. So
can you explain what the flags are for the join command?
Yeah, so I will get that back up on the screen. And so in here, the first command here, root, that's the user we're going to log on to using SSH. So bad practice of me, but this is just for a demo. Don't run as root in real life. You set up a user to run K3S on. The server IP, because I'm using the join command, the server IP is the IP of the master node. And the IP at the end here is the IP address of the droplet we're going to SSH into and run as a worker. So if I run that command again now, we can see here that we've got 4 different nodes running on our cluster. They're 4 different IP addresses of the
looks good
boxes. So that's how quick it is to set up a 4-node cluster. I mean, even with my talking, 2 minutes, 20 seconds, the master node's been, so it's a minute and a half basically to get those 4 things set up and install them.
Yeah, and this can be scripted. You can do it in Bash. You can do your own custom wrapper around it. Yeah. It really pretty fast to get started. Okay. And are you going to install anything else on there?
Yes, I was going to install the OpenFaaS and just show the dashboard. I'll do a node port forward from my machine just to get access to that. So we're going to install OpenFaaS, and this is using Arcade. So it's going to use Helm 3. It's going to grab the chart. It's going to apply a few prerequisite things, which in the past you'd have to manually done every time. And it's going to install that. And when it's done, there we go. And I am going to get the secret. So that's the password. You can't connect to it because it's not exposed anywhere. And then if we go into this second window here, and I need to do config equals /config. I should be able to port for, it's probably not up yet. Yeah. I can't spell, that's why. It's kubeconfig. And then I'm going to port forward from my machine. So then if I go to here, put in the username and then the password we got earlier, we should see that we're logged in, and we could deploy an OpenFaaS function here, or we could log in using the CLI to deploy our functions.
And just show us the output of Arcade Info. If you can have a look at that.
Yep.
You might need to pipe it to less because of the window that you're using. OpenFaaS and less.
So it gives us some useful commands there. It tells us how to get the fast CLI, which would allow us to interact with the gateway. It's given a couple of those port forward command that I used to get access to the UI, and the password command there a little bit lower down that I used to get the password, and then some useful commands using the fast CLI. And if you're running on ARM devices, how you can see some of the ARM based images we have in the store for you. So that was bootstrapping and installing OpenFaaS on a DigitalOcean, 4 DigitalOcean nodes. That was pretty easy, I hope you'll agree. And I think now I'm going to move on to SSHing into Alex's house.
Right. And
swatch my windows.
What I haven't done is I haven't gone to my router and opened up a port. I've instead run Inlets Pro and told it to punch out port 22 to a droplet. And that's how Alice, don't need to exit, but that's how Alistair's connected now. So Inlets client is running on my Intel NUC, and it's saying any traffic that you get, forward it to that Raspberry Pi. And I just have that as a long running process. You can configure it with systemd. You can even run it in Kubernetes if you want.
So I think we should have your 4 node cluster set up here. Yeah. So we've got our 4 Raspberry Pis that Alex set up sometime yesterday evening, or depending on your time.
You can see the OS image is a Raspberry, and like I said, we don't need anything fancy. We should use the operating system and support the community. The Raspberry Pi Foundation worked really hard to keep this up to date.
Yes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install the Inlets operator, and what that will do is that will allow us to, when we install Traefik 2 and create something that needs a load balancer, it will create a DigitalOcean droplet, and it will set up forwarding of the traffic from that DigitalOcean IP into this cluster that's in Alex's house. So I've just pasted in the command. We're going to install the Inlets operator, and I've told it that DigitalOcean token and my Inlets Pro license is set there, an environment variable. So that should go away and install some stuff. Oh, Alex, you added a little hello in there, I think. So if we look at the services that are running, does it run as a service? No.
It's a deployment, yeah. Operator.
So we've got, you can see you've got the operator here.
The Inlets one is the one we just deployed.
Oh, the Inlets operator. Yeah, that's the one. So Inlets operator there, containers creating, deployed 20 seconds ago. So it's not going to do anything at the moment because we haven't got any services that require an external IP. So we've got no pending external IPs.
So it picks up anything that has a load balancer on it, and we don't have a load balancer yet.
Yeah, so we've just got those ones.
Okay, so let's install Traefik 2. Is that where we are?
Traefik 2, yeah. So we're going to use Arcade again to install Traefik 2. We'll pass it the dashboard flag, which should hopefully create the installation, including a dashboard. I did try this just before we came online and it wasn't working, so I've got a screenshot ready, but yeah, we've
well, the dashboard, not that. Traefik 2, right?
The dashboard, yeah, the dashboard.
That's
I wasn't able to get it, so
yeah.
Worst case scenario, I'll just
and you can see some of the output that we've given here. Like if you didn't have a dashboard and you wanted it, we can tell you how to get it. It's telling you, so yeah, if you get that service, you say it's pending. And this is our operator. What it's doing is it will deploy Inlets for you, Inlets Pro or Inlets open source, get you that IP by provisioning a machine in the cloud. DigitalOcean is about $5 a month. If you even run it for a whole month, you might not do. And we've got our CRD as well, the tunnel, get tunnel.
Yeah, so this is creating us provisioning a host in DigitalOcean, and when that goes to ready, we'll get the host IP and we can then use that to set up some DNS records. So we've got an IP there. That was good. That was very good. And I need to copy that. So on my machine here, I'm going to export IP. I'm going to just add 2 domain DNS records in. I've got a DigitalOcean domain set up, and I've created a record for, can't see how that one is, OpenFaaS, which will expose, and I've done the right command copy. And then I'm going to create one now for our emoji domain. So we've created a new record there for emojis.
Okay.
I'm going to install Tshirt Manager now, but I'm just going to check our A records. .al.org to make sure that they've propagated to the correct IP, which they have. So now I'm going to install Cert Manager using Arcade, and what that's going to do, I'm going to need to get onto the right box.
Yeah, it does work on Scaleway. It works on Packet. There's a question from Darren. It works on pretty much sort of 6
AWS,
major clouds.
GCP, yeah.
And we can accept pull requests for other popular clouds depending on demand.
Yeah.
You can still set up your own server. It's just that we've automated everything here. I just want to make it really easy for you. Cert Manager is something that's only just come to ARM again. It was around the 0.12 release, and James Munnelly, thanks to him, he came up on his radar, and they've done all the requisite work now, and they've started to ship images for all architectures.
And that's been very slow. Why is it not doing anything? Oh, because I didn't. Oh, I haven't installed the OpenFaaS Ingress. Yeah, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to create an Ingress record for OpenFaaS using Traefik as our Ingress type or Ingress class. And then that should kick Cert Manager into action to try and get us a certificate for that. So I'm installing it against the OpenFaaS domain there. I'm telling you to use Traefik, and I think Cert Manager is not ready. Service, no, CTL.
You want the deployments, don't you? Not the services.
Yeah. It's still creating. So we added that handy little.
If you do the get, if you do the get in with -n Cert Manager and a W for watching, just get the pods there. You should see it come up. That should do you. Not with the -a.
Oh yeah, sorry. They were all up to date.
Okay, so we're good now. Awesome.
So yeah, I'll just run that again. So we're going to install the OpenFaaS Ingress, which is again is another Arcade app. We've just templated a few Ingress things. We've installed a cluster issuer for the certificates, and we just need to pass it in a few parameters to the domain. Email for Cert Manager, certificate renewal, and the Traefik Ingress class.
And we're using the Ingress behavior of Traefik 2 here, not the new CRD, just for compatibility.
So we should now have, I have an alias, it's really bad, but not on this machine. So yeah, so we've created, Cert Manager's gone off and spotted that we've got the Ingress Ingress in there, and it's gone off and it's going to try and get a certificate for us, which might take a minute or two.
Okay.
But hopefully it shouldn't be too long. Whilst that's going, we could install the function Ingress for the.
Yeah, so the reason that we created the function Ingress, and that, by the way, that certificate is valid now. I've just noted it's still self-signed. Ignore me. The reason why we created this function Ingress thing is, maybe you can cat it on the screen so people can see the YAML, is that in OpenFaaS, by default, because we want to make things easy, you will get a root for your function. You don't have to create that separately. I mean, why would you? But if you want a custom domain, we've now created this. There's a blog post you can read about it. And so emoji-voting will point at your function. We'll get you a TLS record if you want one. And this is going to go to the view function.
So
you could apply that anyway, right? Yeah. Just to get started.
FNI, is it? Yeah. I can't spell. So that's created that function Ingress, and I don't know if our cert will get. But oh yeah, we've got our OpenFaaS cert now.
Got our gateway.
So that'll be up, and then this new certificate that's popped in because we had the. Where is it? Yeah. So in fni.yaml. So in the bottom of this, we said that we want to use TLS and use the Let's Encrypt prod issuer that we have set up through Arcade.
So what have we got on the certificates? Has that come up yet?
It's
okay.
Still
so in the interest of time, I'm going to put a chat message for everybody, and it's using the HTTPS cert we just got. If we get the emoji one, we'll send you that as well. but you'll see it. It's openfaas.hal.org/function view. If you can open that, Alistair.
Yep.
I'll open it as well. This is where you will get to participate. So all you need is just to be logged into GitHub. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new issue called let's get some traffic. And what you need to do is click on comment on proposal. Yeah.
There's a, is it this top one? Yeah.
Yeah. And then just, you see me, I've commented there.
Alex got
I put 2 in.
Okay. Yeah.
Is anybody else on this yet? Have you found it, Eddie?
We've got some here.
Thanks, Eddie. The mountain.
Eddie.
And then
So
if we
let's see
refresh,
there we go.
you see we're kind of at 1 at the moment, right? So vote for your favorite one. Ship it. I don't know if ship it is actually a thing yet. Is it?
So our emojis domain certificate's now there. So
okay, can we try that?
Yeah, we'll give it a go. So it would be emojis.org and do. No, that's forwarding to the gateway.
Might need it to put the path on it for it to work with traffic. We could reapply the FNI, but maybe we do that. We'll do that later and share it in the notes. So we will give you full notes for how to do all of this. Alistair's going to be working on a blog post, and also all of this tooling is quite self-explanatory. We have got a Slack community that you can come to as well, and so some of these emojis aren't supported in the emoji library I use. So thanks for testing this in production with me. But it does seem like thumbs up is the favorite one so far.
No one likes my rocket. 4 thumbs up. You can also, there's a link on there where you can join the OpenFaaS Slack and you can chat to us and chat to loads of other people, which is cool.
How are we doing now?
Coming in now. Loads of them, look.
Your screen is glitching a little bit. I don't know if you can see that.
I
sort of, I don't know why.
Cool.
If I was to look at the SQL table, so this is all going through a SQL table, I could tell you how many rows we've got, how many things have come through here. But that's, I hope this is fun. We've gone from nothing to a TLS certificate. We've got this all up and running. It's all on a Raspberry Pi. DigitalOcean have kindly provided some credits for me to run Postgres there. It costs about $15 a month because, again, on an ARM architecture, you can run Postgres as an apt package, and you probably should, but you're not going to easily run it through a Helm chart. Okay, so if you could stop sharing, I'll just go over to my screen. And I will share now. So what did we do? We took 4 Raspberry Pis, and by the way, the 2 gig one is now the same price as the 4 gig, so you might as well buy that if you're thinking of it. We then used Ketchup to install Kubernetes, and the steps that you saw Alistair do are what I did last night on the Raspberry Pi cluster. I just didn't want to live dangerously. We then installed OpenFaaS. We installed the Ingress operator so we can get an IP address. We installed Traefik and Tshirt Manager, and all these tools work great together. That composability that I talked about at the beginning, multi-arch, open source. This is what makes great cloud native tooling. And this is kind of what we ended up with. So when you were clicking on the web page at the top, view results, you weren't actually going to that computer. You were going to DigitalOcean Droplet. And there was a WebSocket between that and my house where the client was running on my Raspberry Pi. Right. That talked to the Ingress controller, which happened to be Traefik 2 in this example. That talked to the OpenFaaS gateway, which had the TLS certificate from Tshirt Manager. And we've got our 3 functions. Import comment takes a webhook, as you can see on the far left from GitHub. And every time you comment, we get that. We then stick it into Postgres in a table, insert a new user if we need to. And when you go to the view function, that actually goes to another function privately called comments. Comments just returns the data in JSON, and then we render it in a static UI. But you could deploy the viewing site of this to GitHub Pages or Netlify and just have the API in OpenFaaS. And you don't even need Kubernetes. We have a new project called FASD, and it's a really tiny binary. You can stick it on any VM or even a Raspberry Pi, and it will get you the basics of OpenFaaS in a really short period of time. So I hope this picture is useful, and we've shown you that you can actually build something proper and real, and you can do it in a short period of time. The code is available online. If you want to know about any of these projects, they're pretty much all of them have a domain. We've got Ketchup Dev, Get Arcade, Inlets Dev, and OpenFaaS. The best way, though, if you liked anything you saw today, to find out more is to become an insider. And this is a subscription email that I run every week. You'll be able to, from starting at $5 a month, get updates on all of this work from myself and Alistair and the rest of the community. There's also other opportunities and discounts that come up, like there's a 20% discount on the OpenFaaS store at the moment, only for insiders. Okay, so thank you so much for listening. Feel free to get in touch with us through the Slack community. There is a link if you go all the way back to where you're doing your emoji voting. Any other questions that you've got, unfortunately, we haven't got to answer them now, not all of them, but we will look at the doc that Patricia's prepared for us, and Slack would be a great place for you to go to next. Okay, so thanks, Alistair. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Patricia, and everybody for coming.
Just an update, thumbs up is winning, six votes.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And to the person who was asking, you just scroll to the bottom of the GitHub and it says for comment, you comment with your emoji. So thank you for joining us, everyone. What a brilliant presentation. And as I always do, because it's a thing, we do a virtual fist bump. If you have it in you at the end of the day. You're leaving me hanging, Alex. Alistair's in it with the cool. Yeah, that's also a favorite emoji, the dap. Okay, cool. Thank you, everyone. The video here will go live on YouTube, as you know. You subscribe to the Containers channel. I put that in the chat box, and we'll wrap it up now. So thank you so much. And it was a beautiful presentation. So keep in touch, and we'll see you online.
Great. All right. Well, let us know if you need anything. We're available on Slack, and there'll be the recording and the blog post. All right.
OpenFaaS.com. Okay, bye, everyone.
Yeah. Bye.